All right, we begin with this. Fox News alert, explosions and sirens heard in Jerusalem moments ago. You just saw the videos. Long-range missiles are fired towards the central part of the country. Our own Trey Yinks just posted a video of himself amidst the chaos.
Huge rocket barrage just targeted the city of Ashdod. We saw multiple impacts across this heavily populated area. We took cover next to a building, but you could see the rockets coming off the Gaza Strip and slamming into buildings in this community.
More than 700 people in Israel have been murdered by Hamas terrorists since the war began, including at least 4 Americans.
Yeah. Israel now ordering a complete siege of Gaza, not letting food, electricity, or fuel in the territory.
And that is where we stand on this Monday morning. Benjamin Hall joins us right now from our European newsroom with the very latest. Benjamin.
Lawrence, Steve, Brian Ainsley, good morning. Yes, Trey still there right at the front, seeing more of those rockets coming in from Gaza. What we're also hearing is that in the last couple of hours, the IDF, that's the Israeli Defense Forces, have finally retaken all the towns along the Gazan border. That is about 2 days that some of these Hamas terrorists have managed to hold on to some of these towns. And we know that for a while they were controlling villages. They were going door to door. They were killing families. And some of the images coming out of those villages have been simply horrific. As we also heard, the Israelis have now completely blockaded Gaza, and the Israeli Defense Forces come out with a statement saying that they have ordered a complete blockade of the Gaza Strip. They've even said that there will be no electricity, no food, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals, and we will act accordingly. But the next step is going to be very, very difficult, and that's because of all the prisoners, the hostages that are being held right now by Hamas. There are at least 100 people, including women, including children, toddlers, elderly people being held captive inside Gaza, inside the tunnels. And you see some of the images of them, and you can imagine the atrocities that they are seeing right now. And what this does is it adds a very different complication to the next step. We know that there are 100,000 Israeli forces getting together. They are planning on going into Gaza, but it is very complicated because of the prisoners that are being held right now. In the past, when Hamas took Israeli prisoners, they would often do a prisoner exchange. In 2007, they exchanged almost over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners for one Israeli soldier. Well, Hamas now has around 100, maybe over 100, including some Americans. So it does look like a prisoner exchange for the moment is not going to happen. Instead, Israel has said it is going to go in. It is going to annihilate Hamas as best as it can, but it's going to be difficult. For a while, the Israelis have stayed out of Gaza. Despite all the rocket attacks over the last few years, they knew how dangerous it is to go into Gaza. That's because they know it will be full of booby traps. It will be rigged. They will be facing an urban fight, and so now finally they've decided that they have to do it. One of the big issues, I think, on a bigger scale is perhaps whether or not Iran was involved. We know Iran supports Hamas. It gives them weapons, it trains them, it gives them money. But what we heard earlier today from the Wall Street Journal was that they have evidence that Hamas and Hezbollah, they say their senior leaders, did meet with Iranian security officials in Beirut on Monday, and that they gave the green light for this attack to go ahead. The Wall Street Journal said this. They said officers of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had worked with Hamas since August to devise the air, land and sea incursions, the most significant breach of Israel's borders since the 1973 Yom Kippur War, those people said. So if that is confirmed, and yesterday Secretary Blinken said that there was no intelligence that the US had yet, although he did acknowledge that the Iranians were supporting Hamas, well, that opens up a whole different scenario. A scenario where Israel may feel the need to retaliate against Iran for the death of 700, maybe more, of its own citizens. And if that happens, we could see Hezbollah coming down from the south. Hezbollah have stayed back for the moment. They have launched some rockets, but into some very unpopulated areas, so they haven't entered properly. But this is on the border right now, and there's every fear that this could escalate into a really regional, dramatic war. But for now, the focus really is on getting in, saving those hostages and annihilating Hamas as best they can, getting rid of all military emplacements they have. This isn't going to be days, this isn't going to be weeks, this is going to be months ahead, and it has changed Israeli policy towards them. In the last few years, there had been more Gazans coming out of Gaza. They had been 20,000 a day. Things were considered to perhaps be getting better. That's been reversed. The policy moving forward is going to be a strict and a stern one. And so we wait to see exactly how that's going to play out.
That's right.
Benjamin, do you know, are there American hostages as well? I know there are 4 Americans that have been confirmed dead. What about hostages?
Well, just yesterday on Fox, the Israeli ambassador to the UN said that he said that there could be dozens of them being held inside Gaza. So we don't know the figures yet, to be honest, but that did come from the Israelis. So that they are saying there are some Americans being held, yes.
Well, Jonathan, you had the good news that the Israeli army has regained control of those communities along the Gaza area that has been controlled by Hamas. That's really good news. But now today, what's happened in the last hour or so is you've got Hamas firing these rockets deep inside of Israel. They're not content just to be along the border. Now they're aiming at the capital. They're aiming at Jerusalem and Tel Aviv as retaliation for the strikes on the people's houses in the Hamas areas. That just changes everything.
Yeah, Hamas are completely committed now to a full-out war. They said so about 50 days ago. They said they were preparing for a full-out war, and the Israelis, maybe not enough attention was paid to that, but they are going to launch everything they've got. They are ready for urban warfare, street to street, and yes, those rockets, they keep firing. We've seen some of the longer-range rockets as well, which until a few years ago they didn't have. It's thought that Iran helped provide and build those rockets, and so those rockets are the ones that can reach Jerusalem, they can reach Tel Aviv, and that's why this is so frightening at the moment. The Iron Dome system is very effective. It blocks out many of these rockets, but it only blocks out about 80% of them. And Trey, just in the last 10 minutes, posted a video showing the rockets still landing in Ashkelon where he is. So that's one of the reasons that the Israelis are going in. They know there are factories, military factories. They continue to build rockets. And of course, they continue to build rockets, but they build them in schools. They build them in hospitals. And that's why it's going to be so difficult for the Israelis to move in and to try and annihilate the terrorists while trying to protect the civilians in there.
So you know what's so interesting, Benjamin, is, by the way, Trey's going to join us. He just needs a little bit of rest. He'll join us later in the show. Benjamin, what's so interesting is they had these meetings, reportedly, according to the Wall Street Journal, in Beirut, where Hezbollah is located. And everyone's wondering, will this be a two-front war? What will it take for Hezbollah to get involved? They've had some skirmishes in some disputed areas. But you have to think, if they were able to plan in detail the initial attack, did they anticipate the reaction, and is Hezbollah plotting and planning one to come in?
Well, it's interesting because, yes, we've seen some rockets come from southern Lebanon, but they haven't targeted any of the populated areas yet. And so the message from Hezbollah seems to be that they are on the side of the Palestinians, but they're not getting fully involved at this point. And you wonder whether that is Iran holding them back and Iran waiting to see whether Israel will reach out at Iran. If that happens, then, yes, you can expect Hezbollah to come in a big way. And they have far more rockets than the Hamas does. That really escalates things. But right now, Hezbollah staying quiet for the moment, but that's another threat that Iran has, that Hamas has, that Hezbollah has, that they will come, they will escalate this if the Israelis start to attack ever more.
So, Benjamin, I had the opportunity to talk to one of my friends in the IDF, and he told me the targets that they're striking right now were already on Israel's radar. So when are they going to start attacking other targets, and why didn't they not attack these targets before?
You know, there's been a real balance recently. The Israelis have been trying, to hold back, and they usually respond when Hamas launches rockets. That's when they respond. They generally don't bomb if there hasn't been any altercation. I think now they are realizing perhaps they held back. Perhaps they should have been more involved in the past. And yes, big questions about how they didn't see this attack coming. Up to 1,000 of these Hamas terrorists came across. That is not a small operation. By land, by sea, by air. Meetings that we're hearing from the Wall Street Journal in Beirut. And yet the Israelis have said they had great signal intelligence, great human intelligence, and yet no warning at all about this. And so, yes, the question will be asked in a while. Could more have been done? But right now, the Israeli focus is getting in, getting rid of the threat that is posed to them, and straight away. And obviously, the questions will keep coming after that.
Real quickly, Ben.
One thing is certain, that is Israel is totally unified right now. And in the past, there were concerns. Should Israel go in on the ground when rockets came over? Should they escalate this? That is not being doubted right now. Everyone I've spoken to in Israel across the spectrum, the political spectrum from the left to the right, are unified. This is a terror threat and it has to change. They see this as their 9/11 and they will not let it happen again, is how they see it. So
Benjamin,
we expect them to go in and we expect them to take out everything they can. that has to do with Hamas and their military capabilities.
Is it true that there was this perception, another thing that he said, that it seemed like there was this perception that Israel was the bully here? And so they held back some restraint. There was some sort of intelligence that they saw them training and all that. They didn't know the exact day they were going to attack or anything like that. But Israel held some restraint because in the world's eye, there was this perception that they were the aggressors.
Yes, I mean, look, you look around the world, you look at how the UN responds forever. I mean, for many years, Israel have been the bullies here. They're the ones who have held, Gazans inside and were surrounded by walls. But the Israelis have watched Hamas train and mobilize constantly. They have constantly been aware of it. And now they won't be held back by what they would say the UN and many of these other groups say against them. This is their time to wipe out the evil.
All right, Benjamin, thanks so much.